What is something illegal you have done and got away without getting caught? Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below. I brought 2 or 3 Cuban cigars back to the US from Montreal once. When we cleared the border, I turned to my parents and used my favorite line from Futurama, "Guess what your accessories to?" I stole my own car from the tow impound lot. Best part was getting the certified letter months later that they were going to auction it if I didn't come and pay for it. You should have gone back with the letter and demanded to see the car. My friends and I didn't pay for our dinner at Steak and Shake this past weekend. I stood waiting at the register trying to pay for 20 minutes, but no one came to take my money. It was 1230 AM before we left. I accidentally shoplifted some pudding cups once. I was at Target and was buying a couple of large bags of dog food which were in the basket part of the cart and several smaller items that were in the top part of the cart. I had tossed the pudding cups into the basket part before I put the dog food bags in and forgot they were there when I put all the smaller items on the belt to be rung up. They were hidden from view when the dog food bags were scanned. I saw them when I was putting the dog food bags into the trunk. If the lines weren't so long, I would have gone back to pay for them, but 20 minutes for a 99-cent item, I can live with that. If it were a more expensive item, I would have returned to pay for it. I work at Target and basically, we're told that if someone walks out with something they forgot to pay for, it's on the cashiers for not checking. One lady called and said that she forgot to pay for a bottle of wine and the team lead told them they'll just mark it out. Basically, don't worry about it but don't try to steal. I trespassed a condo car park to see an expensive car. I pretended I lived there. I bet you took a picture of it too, you monster. Unfortunately it wasn't there, it was a nice modified Lamborghini Aventador. I think the owner had moved out. I say might, have a few pence from work in my drawer at home. This is not an admission of wrongdoing, nor can I attest to how they got there. If they're even there. Worked at a car dealership, broke many finance and insurance fraud laws on a daily basis for years. Most finance managers do and may not even be aware of it. I stole a piece of obsidian from biology class. At the next lesson, biology teacher came to our classroom and forced us to admit who stole an obsidian. But I didn't. I found out that this specific guy stole my phone, from checking previous text on my account and calling numbers they were in contact with. He wouldn't admit he stole it, so I broke into his house via balcony, stole his laptop, and left a singed note to meet me and return my phone to get his laptop back. It totally worked and everyone got their stuff back. It took me a moment to realize you probably meant signed. I visited an abandoned building. Someone called the police and 30 minutes later we saw firefighters walking into the huge building just to search us. Luckily we saw it when we were already out. Why would they send firefighters? Are you sure you didn't just accidentally trigger some kind of alarm? Probably climbing a signal tower, in Egypt. I realized afterwards that it was on military land. Then proceeded to climb it another couple of times. Oh, to be young and carefree. I was like 6 years old in a grocery store with my mom. She tells me to hold on to the gallon of apple juice because there was no more room in the cart for it. And I bleep loved apple juice. So being an absolute compliant little bleep, I held onto the juice as she went through the checkout line. Kept holding it as we left to the car, on the way home, and all the way to the fridge to hand it to her to put it in the right spot. Only then did she realize that we never paid for it. I said, but you told me to hold on to it. She just looks at me dumbfounded, then deadpan tells me not to mention it to anyone else, that it was an accident, and that we are keeping it. In summary, stole apple juice, didn't get in trouble, and got to drink the entire gallon of that sweet bleep nectar of the gods by myself. I went into CVS for 3 things: deodorant, the specific pencils I like to use, and a notebook. I grabbed the deodorant, perused the office supply aisle and saw they didn't have the pencils I wanted, so I decided it wasn't worth it to get the notebook either. Feeling like my trip was a failure, I left. Walked out of CVS with the deodorant in my hand. No alarm went off, no employees stopped me. About 3 steps outside of the door, I realized I just stole, however unintentionally. So I walked back in, bought the deodorant and 3 other items out of guilt. I went to see Joe Biden speak during a campaign rally for the general election in 2008. It was at an apple orchard and the people who owned it had a basket of apples for Joe Biden and his staff by the stage. As soon as he left, I, along with half of the front row, got up and stole some of Joe's apples. They were among the best I've ever had. Sorry Mr. Vice President, but if I had the chance I'd steal your apples all over again. Broke into a church, made a mess. Went into the kitchen, made myself a sandwich, snacks, grabbed a soda. Went on my merry way back home. Woke up the next day. Sober me felt guilty. Went back to apologize and pay for any damage. Ended up with a felony. GF's car got a flat tire and the company I worked for had a tire changer and wheel balancer and I knew the guys who operated it. We just needed a tire, so we go to Walmart, but the tire shop was closing early because they were slow and would not sell me a tire. I was pretty pissed and seen tires with cardboard cutouts in them on top of the shelves in the automotive department. I grabbed the one we needed and knocked out the cardboard and just walked out with it. Told the door greeter it was much cheaper here than anywhere else. I lived with my boyfriend for a couple of years at a time when it was illegal in this state to do so. This was in the early 1980s, so not the distance past. Stole Pokemon cards from Fry's. I just wanted Charizard. Never got him. I got a Charizard, but lost it in a bad trade cause I was a dumb kid. My kid traded for one. Next day kid's mom calls and says he needs to give it back. When Xbox 360s used to get the red ring of death, I started up my own little side business. I used to buy new ones at Walmart with cash, open it, and take a small razor and swap the barcode from the new 360 to the broken 360. Then I would take the broken 360 with the new barcode and put it in the box and return it to Walmart saying it was a gift, but I already had one. All they used to do was scan the barcode to see if it was the same. Boom, new 360, and I would charge people $100 and get them the brand new 360 within 48 hours. I think that the statute of limitations is over on this one. It happened in the year 2000, almost 20 years ago, and so I can likely talk freely about it without getting in trouble. When I was at a local private school and had homework, I would often forge my mum's initials so as to not having to actually do it. My band director tried to crack down on my forging after doing it for 4 years. Luckily for me, he'd never actually received a signature from my mom, so they all looked the same regardless. I forged my parents' signatures on band permission slips so many times in high school. One of my friends signed his permission slips Donald Duck for 2 years before anyone noticed. I stole one of the rulers of one of my teachers when I was 13. I know, I'm a bad bleep. Yardstick today, prison yard tomorrow. I was 17 with my license, she was 16 with her permit. I let her drive my old stick-shift Jeep and she didn't know the difference between the brake and clutch and sent us into a guardrail at 40 miles per hour. Jeep was totaled and I was not about to have my license revoked until I turned 18, so I pushed the driver's seat back and the passenger forward. When the cops asked who was driving, I took responsibility. We got $13,000 for the Jeep and I paid my parents. My uncle gave me the Jeep and got a new car. Plus, I never got my license taken away. I'm not having my freedom revoked. I borrowed a piano from my music school and I never gave it back. I once didn't come to a complete stop at a stop sign, in the middle of the night. Just rolled through with smooth 2 kilometers per hour. If you ain't out of control, you ain't in control. That's called the California roll. or the California stop, as we call it in NorCal. Say what you want about hippies, we are self-aware. I once bought plastic storage tubs at Walmart. The cashier didn't realize there was a second storage tub in the first one I bought, and I got it for free. The guilt of this haunts me to this day. I hope God and the country can forgive me. Just took my statewide standardized test and forgot my phone in my pocket. I listened to music through my headphones the whole time. Cool face. SWAT team is zeroing in on your location now. I was a teenager who had good grades in school. I also had a part-time job as a dishwasher. My boss asked me to get permission from my school to work more hours and later in the evening. I wanted to do it, but my principal flat out refused, and his only reason was that school was too important. I forged his signature on the paperwork, and that was that. Never heard anything more about it. I went 50 miles per hour when the limit was 45. I was going 75 in a 35 with a Domino's pizza topper lit up on my roof late at night on an empty country road. A cop went by in the other direction, lit up his light bar, and started turning around to follow me. I unplugged their topper, pulled into the next neighborhood, cut my lights and pulled into a driveway. The cop drove by without noticing me. I felt like a bleep, but then a sense of dread settled in when I realized that if he noticed that the glowing topper said Domino's Pizza on it, he'd know where to find me. Luckily, he had better things to do and never came to get me at the store. Going on Club Penguin without parents' permission. Evil and disgusting. You monster. In my 20s, I shoplifted over 500,000 worth of stuff over a period of 3 years. I was very sad. Bleep, that's weird, a way of saying you robbed a bleep bank. At a major university rivalry football weekend, with ESPN College game day and 200,000 people in town, I stole a box of flares from a police checkpoint and proceeded to lay them at different places around town. Messed up traffic for hours. I parked in the 10-minute parking even though I knew it would take me like 15 minutes. I jaywalk every day. Tore off that tag on a mattress at the mattress store. Open up, mattress police. I snuck into the Super Bowl this year. Once I was in by myself, friend wasn't so lucky. I checked on StubHub to find an open seat. Most expensive one was $35K, first row in the end zone. So I got myself down there and waited for someone to kick me out. Nobody ever came. Put my Nintendo Ds under my pillow without my mum knowing. In kindergarten I stole my teacher's sandwich and ate it. Nobody ever knew. Filled out a fountain drink at gas station and then taking a sip and then refilled it. You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.